IVM.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories, India's very own travel podcast, where each week we discuss the story of travelers in their own words and relive their experiences with you, our listeners. Hi guys, I'm your host Saif, and our guest traveler today is none other than the Bap of all Indian travel blogs, the Desi Traveler, also known as Prasad NP. Prasad is a travel blogger, a photographer, an entrepreneur, a mentor, and an investor in many new startups. Prasad loves to write about travel in general and family travel in particular. He is also an active advocate of wildlife protection and nature conservation. Prasad's works have been featured in publications such as Andhra Jyoti, Vav Hyderabad, Maharashtra Times, and the Indian Express. He also regularly writes and contributes for Travel Leisure magazine, Dainik Bhaskar, and Jetwings, the in-flight magazine of Jet Airways. Prasad's blog has been named by Bagout as one of the top 16 socially active travel blogs in India, and he has also been mentioned by Tripoto and IndianExpress.com as one of the top travel bloggers to look out for. With that introduction, I'd like to welcome Prasad NP, the Desi Traveler. Prasad, thanks so much for being a part of the Musafir Stories, and welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks a lot for inviting me for the show. I'm really excited to talk to you.
Excellent. Prasad, the introduction I gave initially is kind of concise, so why don't you go ahead and tell us and our listeners a little bit more about you, your blog, The Desi Traveler, and also when the travel bug bit you. How long have you been traveling and blogging for?
Sure. So, I've been traveling, as far as I remember, since my childhood, mostly earlier with my parents, and then when I was in college, I used to go on a lot of trips with my friends, and my job also required me to travel a lot. I used to travel almost 10-15 days in a month. So slowly, you can say the blog came much later. The traveler has been always there. And formally, the blog with the name Desi Traveler started in 2013 N types. Though before that, I've been writing on Blogspot once in like 6 months kind. But seriously, I started blogging sometime in mid 2014 and 2013 types when I actually moved to WordPress and started using the name Desi Traveler. Okay. So that's the story behind it. It essentially remains a hobby kind of blog for me because this is not my full-time profession. But I love to travel and I love to share my stories.
And Prasad, tell us a little bit more about the name. Is there a story behind the name Desi Traveler?
Yes. So I used to work for a US company, and almost every month I would go to US. I have a few close friends living in New York and close by areas. So every time I'll pass through New York, we'll meet them and they'll say, our Desi Traveler has come. So that's how the name stuck, and I started using it for my blog because in New York and surrounding areas, people typically from India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan are called Desis. So that's how.
That's so true. That's so true. And Prasad, can you please tell our listeners what you write about? What's your niche?
So mainly, I focus on destinations where you can travel with your family. Mm-hmm. And so you'll see a lot of stories about places where you can go with your family. Yeah. You'll see stories about nature, environment, wildlife. Those kind of stories where people can. You'll find very few stories about hardcore adventure sports like paragliding or scuba diving, but you'll see a lot of stories about wildlife, nature. And my idea is that if you can encourage people to not only travel, but travel responsibly, mm-hmm. because travel creates a lot of carbon footprint. And if you can sensitize people like, okay, hey, you're going for a trek in Himalayas, but remember to bring back your chocolate wrappers, your water bottles, and all those stuff back with you. So that's what my focus is about. And I write with the idea that when people read these stories, not only they become sensitized, but if they're traveling with their kids, they tell them also about these things that, hey, we are traveling to Himalayas and it's our moral responsibility to make sure that we leave them as pristine as we found them.
Exactly. So that the future generations can also enjoy these, and it's not just us doing all
Yes.
enjoyment, right? Awesome. So on that note, we have a little tradition at the Musafir Stories, Prasad, where with each week with our guest travelers, we speak about a destination, the ins and outs of it, everything from preparation to how to get there, where to stay, things to do, avoid, all of that. Essentially the A to Z of that destination. So having said that, where would you like to take our listeners to today?
So I would talk a little bit about Spiti in Himachal. The reason I want to talk about Spiti is that it is still an unspoiled destination. It is not a touristy place like, say, Manali or Shimla, and the landscape and the terrain is very similar to Ladakh. But fortunately or unfortunately, as the case may be, Spiti doesn't have an airport. So you need to travel 12 to 14 hours to reach Spiti, and that is from Manali. So the idea is, like, if people have started traveling to Spiti, let's start traveling there responsibly and make sure that we do not spoil Spiti. So that's the whole idea. So that's why I want to talk about Spiti. It's a very beautiful place. People are very friendly. The terrain is harsh, but extremely beautiful. And you have some really nice a day trek. You have longer treks also, but I've done only smaller day treks over there. So I think that's a place people have started discovering only in last few years. And it would be good if that kind of becomes a destination where people travel only responsibly and it doesn't become touristy.
Excellent. So having said that, how did you get there, Prasad? You said it's about 14-hour journey from Manali, right? So what was your journey like? Where did you start off from, and what was the whole process of getting there?
Sure. So Spiti is another high altitude destination. The air is thin, oxygen levels are low. So that's why it's better you take a one night stopover in Manali, get a little bit acclimatized to slightly higher altitude, and then you take either a bus or a car or a cab, whatever, to Spiti, and it takes anywhere between 12 to 14 hours to reach Kaza, which is the district headquarters of Spiti. You can stop on the way wherever you want because the whole landscape is so beautiful. I'm sure everybody would want to stop and click pictures. So the whole idea of going slowly is because as you're climbing higher, your body gets used to the rarefied atmosphere over there. And by the time you reach Kaza, it is still recommended you rest completely, at least for one day, so that you don't exert yourself and you don't get mountain sickness when you start looking around or traveling within Spiti the next day. There's another route which is 24 hours, but then you have to go through Shimla and the other side. So I normally recommend that you go via Manali, which takes only 12 to 14 hours.
Awesome. And in terms of preparation, you did mention about the altitude sickness and the AMS being a factor, but anything else that our listeners and fellow travelers should keep in mind while traveling to Spiti? Anything to carry? What should one pack?
Okay, so Spiti, like I said, is high altitude place and it is above tree line. So you will not get any shade over there. So whether you're going on a trek or even if you're going to market, the sunlight is very harsh. So I highly recommend you carry with you good sunscreen, a hat which will cover your face, umbrella, whatever the case may be. The idea is you should protect yourself from the very strong sunlight over there. Otherwise, you'll get like very severe sunburns. But if you're prepared with a sunscreen lotion or you're wearing a proper hat and all, then you would be safe. So that is one part. The other part about Spiti is that because you are traveling in a terrain where there is no trees, and when you are in shade, it gets very cold. When you are in sunlight, it gets warmer. So the temperature difference is very high between shade and when you are standing in the sun. Right. So be prepared. Wear layer clothes. Even when you are going in summers, the evenings are going to be very cold. They are going to be as cold as winters in places like Delhi and all. So don't just think that I am going to Spiti in summer, so I will not need warm clothes. You will need warm clothes in evenings and you will need warm clothes when you are trekking to some of the higher destinations, even in the peak of summers.
Yeah, and then even most of the deserts, for a matter of fact, get pretty cold during nights, right? So
Absolutely. And Spiti is a desert, so
yeah,
it's a cold desert, so all the more reason to carry warm clothes.
exactly. So having said that, when or what time of the year did you travel there?
So the best time to travel is during what we call summers in plains. So anytime after June to mid-September, the passes are open and you can travel by road over there. Uh, you can also go in winters, but then Rohtang Pass is normally closed. Both Rohtang and Kunjum Pass are closed. So you have to go via Shimla. That takes you 2 days. You have to stop overnight on the way. And then, but for a first time travelers, I would recommend you go only in summer between June to mid-September.
Awesome. So, Prasad, having gone through the preparation phase and best time of the year to get there, how was your itinerary like? How long was your whole trip?
So, because you need 1 day to get acclimatized to the high altitude and 1 day to travel. So, typically, I would suggest you do a trip between 7 to 10 days to visit most of the places. And you cannot rush a place like Spiti. You cannot rush from point A to point B. So, you have to travel slowly, enjoy, savor the flavors, meet with the locals. So, I would recommend anywhere between 7 to 10 days. You start from Manali, you reach Kaza. You can make Kaza as your base camp. And then you can start exploring the places around it, because there are not too many hotels in Spiti. You need to do a little bit of research and stay in some nice guest houses or homestays in Spiti. So I would recommend you make Kaza your home base, and then from Kaza you start exploring nearby areas like Key Monastery. You can go to Dhankar Lake and Monastery. Then there are a couple of other monasteries over there, like there's a Tabo Monastery. These are the places you start exploring one by one. If you are interested in living in a Himalayan village, you should explore villages like Langza village, Dhankar village, where the locals are very friendly and they open up their homes as homestays for you to stay with them. While you are coming back, I recommend you stop for a night at Chandratal Lake. Either go there directly by your vehicle, or you start a small trek from Kunjum Pass and slowly go to Chandratal Lake. Till about 2 kilometers before the lake, you can actually camp. There's a special campsite where you can pitch a tent and stay over there. So these are some of the places you must visit, and take it slowly, one place in a day. I would not say going more than one place in a day in Spiti.
Awesome. So let's get into some of the specifics there. You did mention that Kaza was your like base camp, right? So that's where you started from. Any things to see or do in Kaza, or did you just use that as a base camp for lodging? And where did you live while you were there?
So Kaza has a Himachal tourism hotel, and there are a few other private hotels and guest houses. Most of them are very basic, so you can choose any one of them. We stayed in the Himachal tourism hotel, which was slightly better, I would say, compared to some of the very basic homestays. And they have round the clock running water and electricity. So that's a good thing in a remote place. And within Kaza, there's a Kaza Monastery, which is just walking distance from the main market. Then you can go to the Key Monastery, which is one of the old monasteries, and a lot of monks actually live there and study Buddhism over there. So they welcome visitors within their visiting hours, and you can explore the monastery. If the monks are free, you can talk to them, click some pictures. And the view from the top of the monastery is awesome. You can look into the valley beyond, and the blue mountains and cotton candy clouds are there almost everywhere around you. So you can have a look at them and click some nice pictures. Good thing with Key Monastery is that you can take your vehicle right up to the gate of the monastery, so you don't actually have to track over there.
Right.
So I normally recommend that if you're going to Spiti for the first time, you start with Key Monastery, because that way you get used to going to some of these monasteries. Key being closer to a big center like Kaza, they are used to people coming over there, compared to some of the smaller monasteries where still not too many people go.
Exactly. And then how did you get about? Did you hire a vehicle there, or how was this?
So within Kaza, you will get cabs. There is some very skeletal local buses available, but you need to find a schedule for them. What we did was we have hired a vehicle from Manali itself, and a local guide who was from Kaza and who accompanied us everywhere. So this guy knew about all the places and had local contacts, which is, by the way, highly recommended for two reasons. A, it will save you a lot of time in exploring the places because they will know the routes, they will know if any road is blocked. And since they are local, so people are more receptive to them. The other reason is this way you are pumping some little bit of money back into the local economy. Absolutely. And so that's a very important point that I want to make, that when you are visiting some of these local places, I always recommend hiring local people, whether it is the cab driver, whether it is your guide, or whether you are eating. So try some of the local dishes, stay with local families, and this way you are contributing a little bit of money to the local economy, which will help in these people having a better standard of living. One of my friends, he has opened a small library in Spiti, and whenever he or any one of us is traveling, we carry some of the books for the kids to read and distribute amongst them.
That's a very noble thought, I have to say. And it indeed is a very good way to support the locals there from, because in a lot of places you do see that there is this migration from places far-flung places like that to the cities because people don't find enough work around there. So it's a good, it definitely is a good way to support these locals by giving them all these jobs that you mentioned. So,
absolutely.
So Prasad, moving on, just before we move on, how long of a ride was it from Kaza to Key Monastery, our first destination?
I think it was just 45 minutes or so, because we were stopping at many places. You can actually see it from the city, but because it's way up in the mountains, you take a road. The road is good, but we stopped at many places just because, see, the beauty of Spiti is so much. No matter where you click, you just frame your shot and you press the button and you'll get a beautiful shot. So we tend to stop at 100 places to click pictures. So honestly, I'll not be able to tell if you don't stop how much time you will take.
That's so true. And for all the listeners that Prasad has been mentioning about the picturesque locations in and around Spiti, you have to go and have a look at his blog, desitraveler.com, to see some of the pictures he's taken and just be wowed by them, because I know we're talking about it and you're being very descriptive, but still it's hard to capture the beauty of the place.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So some more specifics about the Key Monastery. You mentioned that it's one of the biggest monasteries in Spiti, right, Prasad?
Yes, it's a big monastery and the monks there are very friendly. Mm-hmm. So the good thing is if you reach there in time, like when they're open, because in the evening before sunset they close, because the monks eat early and then they go for prayers or whatever they need to do. So it's a good thing to reach there around say 9:30, 10 types, and then you can spend half a day over there talking to monks, clicking pictures. And I would highly recommend that they have a small kitchen over there. Mm-hmm. And they make absolutely delicious Himalayan tea. You must try that, and they're very kind to offer it to visitors. So must try that. What I would also like to recommend over here there is, like, see, a lot of monks are praying and they are into meditation. Uh-huh. So it is not a good idea to disturb them and request them for posing pictures. If they are not doing anything and they are just walking around, and if you request them, most of them will oblige. But if you find anybody is in deep meditation or praying or something, I would request that you please leave them alone and let them do their thing.
Absolutely. So how much time did you spend at the Key?
I would say half a day is good enough. You reach there, you explore the monastery, you climb. It's a multi-level monastery, so slowly you climb to the top, and then once you are at the top, you can look at the Spiti Valley and the river flowing below. So you click a lot of pictures over there, and if you're lucky, the clouds will form a nice pattern and you'll get even more beautiful pictures. If you are in luck, they would be doing some harvesting in the sweet pea farms. So you can go to the sweet pea farms at the base of the monastery and help the monks in harvesting the sweet peas. They welcome this idea.
Any luck? Did you have any luck?
Yeah, we were lucky. We were able to go to the farms and help them in plucking the peas and clicking some pictures while they were doing that.
Awesome. That would be a fulfilling feeling, right?
Yes.
Awesome. So anything else at the key monastery you'd like to mention, Prasad, or do you want to take us to our next pit stop?
Yeah, I think pretty much everything you need to do there I've covered. We can go to the next.
Yeah, and then more than going and doing stuff, it's just about being there and just experiencing the feeling being there, right? It's the calmness, especially if you're leading a city life, just experiencing the calmness, the smell of the air. It's so much different. It's so much about just experiencing the place than seeing and doing a lot of the things you might do in other places. That's what I feel.
No, you are absolutely right. Just the calmness over there, just to sit in a corner and observe what is happening around you, or just climb to the roof of the monastery and look into the valley, because no matter in which direction you look, you have snow-clad peaks. The terrain is so harsh, but the people are so polite and nice. I mean, that whole feeling of nothing to worry, no rush, nowhere to go, because everything you need is around you, and you have been living in this harsh land for hundreds and thousands of years. Mm-hmm. So if you try to connect with them, that calmness that you get, and then it's a totally different level of travel and feeling when you visit some of these places, when you interact with these smiling people.
Absolutely. So on that note, what was your next pit stop, Prasad? Where did you move on? I'm assuming, did you head back to Kaza after that trip, or did you?
Yeah, so we headed back to Kaza. On that day, we spent some time in the market, because sun sets pretty early in these higher Himalayas, because the peaks are so tall that very soon you get shadows everywhere, and it starts getting very cold. So that's why I'm saying not more than one destination. So we came back to the market, spent some time looking around, buying some souvenirs, then went back to our hotel. Mm-hmm. And in the night, we climbed the roof of the hotel and we tried to click some star trails, because you get absolutely clear skies in places like Spiti. There's no light pollution. Yeah. Probably Kaza is not the best place because it is a fairly big town by Spiti standards. Uh-huh. But in some of the remoter villages, you can get absolutely beautiful stars. You can see the Milky Way with your naked eyes, which you will never get to see in a place like Bangalore or Delhi.
That's so true.
Yes.
Awesome. And also, let me ask, while we're at this, how about the food? Because that's something that people tend to keep in mind as well while traveling. How was the food, and how did you get by it?
So the local food is definitely worth trying. It's a combination of Tibetan and Spitian food. So if you have never tried it, I would highly recommend you try it. It's very flavorful, very simple, but very flavorful. Lot of you get a lot of things like momos and noodles and all, but normal food which people in plains of India are used to, like roti, rice, dal, they're all available. That should not be an issue. But it will not be very spicy or anything, because the taste will be very simple but very flavorful. So food, I don't think you should worry at all in Spiti. Okay. If you want to try local food, there's a ample amount of choices. But if you want to try whatever you are used to, so most of that is available. But in a very much more simpler form.
Awesome. And what about our vegetarian brethren?
Yeah, no problem. There's ample amount of vegetarian choices. I'm myself a vegetarian, so I've never faced an issue in Spiti.
Awesome. So moving on, what was your next day like? What was your plan?
Yeah, so next day we visited Dhankar Monastery and Dhankar Lake. So it's about 1.5 to 2 hours drive from Kaza. Again, because we were stopping, so I am unable to tell how much time it will take if we don't stop. But I can assure you, nobody will be able to drive continuously without stopping, because you will stop to click pictures. Yeah. Anyway, so Dhankar Monastery is another monastery. It's slightly older, and you need to buy a small ticket. I'm forgetting the price, but it's a very nominal sum which they collect from you for maintenance of the monastery. And a lot of old artifacts are displayed over there. There are a lot of old Tibetan scrolls that you can have a look. And monks are praying over there. You can photograph around the monastery. The good thing with this monastery is they also have a small cafeteria where you can go and try both local as well as normal food over there. They also have a small guest house attached to it where you can make a prior booking and stay in the guest house if you want to spend more than a day or so in monastery and looking around the area. There's a Dhankar village close to the monastery where some of the locals have homestays that also you can stay. And so that's the part about Dhankar. So I personally highly recommend that when you reach monastery after you're done, you can have lunch at the monastery itself, rest for a while, and then you can start your trek to the Dhankar Lake.
Okay.
So very few people actually go to Dhankar Lake. It's a very small trek, only about an hour or so, depending upon your fitness level. But the lake is absolutely pristine. It's a very small lake, but the waters are absolutely clear. You can see the pebbles at the bottom and the reflections of the clouds in the lake is absolutely amazing. And on any given day, there will be not more than, say, 10 to 15 people over there, if you are lucky. When we were there, we were the only group, and later when we were coming back, another small group of 3-4 people were coming. So absolutely pristine place, and only about an hour or so of hiking over there. And the whole trail is littered with wild rose bushes, which are in bloom in this season. So absolutely amazing.
And in terms of the height, are you traveling upwards or how?
Yeah, you are traveling a little bit upward. Yes, absolutely traveling upward. But because this is now your second or third day at high altitude, so you should be fine. You should not have an issue.
Okay. And I guess in terms of preparation, a good pair of shoes should be...
absolutely. The thing with the Spiti is because it's a cold desert and there are no trees.
Yeah.
So the soil is loose gravel. So you have to be very careful. You walk very slowly, taking firm steps. And because you are climbing, even though it is your second or third day, the oxygen levels are still low. So there is no need to rush. So walk slowly, take your time, click pictures on the way. And the other thing again, there are no trees.
Yeah.
There will be no shadow anywhere. Absolutely no shadow. So make sure you are wearing a hat that covers your face. You have some sunscreen applied on your face and all those normal precautions you take, and then you climb slowly.
And keep drinking water, I guess. Stay hydrated.
Yeah, keep drinking water. Absolutely. You're right.
Awesome. So how much time did you spend at the Dhankar Lake? And did you get a chance to stay at the guest house you mentioned at the monastery?
Not at the monastery. Next day, we stayed at another village. So I'll talk about that.
Okay.
Let me first answer your question, how much time to spend. So it's totally up to you. There is no shade. There's a small kind of gompa made over there. So that's the only place in whose shadow you can sit, depending upon which direction the sun is coming. So you sit in the shadow of the gompa and then you click pictures. We were very lucky, when we were just there, a local shepherd came with his flock of sheep who all started drinking water in the lake. Nice. That was an absolutely blissful moment to talk to these guys and watch the sheep and the goats over there. So an hour, 2 hours, depending upon how much time you want to spend, how many pictures you want to click. Yeah. But definitely you should leave back before sunset because there's no light or anything. Right. So I would say you check out what is the sunset time and start at least an hour or an hour and a half before sunset so that you can slowly climb down to the Dhankar monastery.
Awesome. So was that pretty much your whole day in Dhankar?
Yeah, so that was the whole day. And by the time we reached back Dhankar monastery, it was already sunset. And then we went to our next destination, which is the Langza village.
Okay.
So Langza village is one of the high altitude Himalayan village, which is cut off from the world during winter months. It's It's a very small village. I think less than 50 houses, maybe even less. And some of the friendly locals have converted their homes, one or two rooms, into a homestay. So we stayed in two of the guest houses. Local guy, one of them belonged to our guide,
Okay.
and one of them to some other villagers. And you stay with them, you try local food, you mix with the locals, and because this summer months are a lot of activities are happening. These 3-4 months that they get in Spiti, like May, June, July, August, September, and visitors start coming only in June.
Mm-hmm.
These 2-3 months, they are very busy harvesting, preparing their fields, cutting whatever little bushes grow. So they take wood from these bushes, no trees, but small bushes, and collect those and use that as firewood for winter. So all these activities are going on. So you can participate in some of these activities, observe their life, interact with them. There's no like you can say that, okay, this is the spot I want to go and see. It's just about going and observing and absorbing life in a Spitian village, which has not changed much in last hundreds of years.
Awesome.
Except now people have like TVs and stuff like that.
Yeah, you didn't mention that it's pretty untouched and a lot of times cut off from the rest of the world. So that leads me to the question, how about connectivity by phone? Are mobile phones of any use at all in these places?
So BSNL phone works once in a while, but most of the other cellular operators in the villages are pretty useless. But in Kaza, almost everything works. If you're lucky. If you're not lucky, then even BSNL doesn't work. So
Okay. And you did mention you spent some time at the Lanza village, right?
So we stayed there overnight. We were there and we kind of, this is a place which after dark is pitch dark because only solar electricity is there. So once people sleep, you can see a billion stars in the sky. And I mean, it's like nothing you have seen ever in your life in any place unless you have been to like some very remote parts of the world. So you can see a billion stars. You can click start rails and you can listen to the sound of winds. It's absolutely amazing. I mean, one must go and try some of these things.
Awesome. And you did mention about the people. Tell us a little more about them. I mean, looks like most of their livelihoods are supported either by farming or tourism. And what was your experience like spending some time there at the village?
So most of the people are farmers or shepherds, and some of them have these homestays, but this is homestays more like a couple of months kind of business, and that is not their main source of income. That is more basically to facilitate, okay, people have come to our village, they have nowhere else to stay, okay, we'll open our house and it gives us some little money. So mostly farmers, mostly shepherds, they keep livestock, they have sheep, they have cows. Some of them keep horses also because they earlier that was the only mode of transport. So now though horses are not used for transport, but they still like to keep some horses, and there are some horse races during festival times that they engage into.
Okay.
The roads are good. Surprisingly, I was very surprised. There is a road right up to the Lanza village. So you don't have to do any hiking. So that's a good part about Spiti. Most of the villages are very well connected right up to the village gate.
That's good to know. And what about language, Prasad? Was there an issue any time, or is Hindi good enough to get by?
So most of the younger generation will speak Hindi and some words of English also. People who are into travel business, they will speak both Hindi and English. The older generation, like people who are above 50 and all, in villages, they may not know Hindi. They will speak local Spitian dialect. But you'll not face a problem. Language would not be an issue because you will always find somebody who knows pretty good Hindi and a decent amount of English.
Awesome. So after spending time at Lanza, where next did you head off to?
So we then went back next day again to Kaza because we were exploring some nearby villages again, mainly because to click pictures and portraits of locals. I think next 2 or 3 days we were doing more or less same thing, visiting monasteries, visiting different villages and stuff like that. And then on our journey back, we camped at Chandratal Lake. So for Chandratal Lake, you need to go via Kunjum Pass on the way back to Manali. So from Kunjum Pass, you take about a 12-kilometer detour and you reach Chandratal Lake. It's one of the most beautiful lakes. It's a small lake, not a very big one like Pangong in Ladakh. But this is a lake which is surrounded by very high mountains, and it's a perennial lake. And it's also the source of Chandra River, which, if my knowledge is correct, later is called Chenab in Punjab and parts of Pakistan. So, one of the sources of Chandra River is Chandratal Lake. And this particular lake is mentioned in some of our earlier scriptures, Vedas and Purans. I don't remember the name, but that I've read. Till about 2 kilometers before lake, you are allowed to do camping. There's a designated camping site.
Okay.
So you can camp over there. Some of the camps also have facilities for offering food to the visitors. You can talk to them, you can get food, or you need to carry your own food and stuff if you don't want to eat in somebody else's camp. Or if you're pitching your own tents, you can cook your own food.
Did you get a chance to camp there?
So yeah, we camped over there, stayed there overnight, and but we stayed in a proper established camp from a company. And they had a proper kitchen tent and facilities for very basic food like khichdi and all. The idea is to keep it as simple as possible, because the more you cook, the more you're going to kind of harm the environment. So the idea is to cook very basic food, disturb as little as possible. Stay there overnight, because early morning when the wind is not going, you trek to the camp, to the lake, and the water is absolutely calm, and you can see the reflections of snow-clad peaks into the water. And when the sun rises, the top of the peak becomes golden. And I mean, it's absolutely amazing to see that sun over there. And it's like nothing else you had ever seen.
Yeah, I could imagine. And I believe it's in the shape of a crescent moon. And
Yes.
that's how it gets the name also, right?
Yes. So that's the reason. Plus, there's some mythological significance with the moon, Chandra. So those kind of things. But you actually cannot see the crescent shape standing at the back, because it's spread over a few kilometers. So you actually have to walk. But you can walk around the lake in an hour or so. So it's not a very big lake.
Okay. And Prasad, you did mention about the campsite. I know Spiti is not as crowded as some of the other places, but do you have to book beforehand, or how does this work?
So if you plan to stay in some other, like in a proper company's camp, it's a good idea to book in advance, because if you're not carrying your camping equipment and you don't have a booking, then you have no place to stay. You will be out in cold. So I would recommend, unless you're taking your own camp, please book in advance to avoid any kind of disappointment.
Okay. And was this handled by your the same guys who?
Yeah, so this is again a local company, local guy, a Spitian guy, and we booked it through them only, and they took care of all the logistics.
Okay, excellent. So how much did you spend a day and a half there with the overnight stay, or was this longer?
Yeah, day and a half over there. Like we reached there around lunchtime, and then we left next day after breakfast and stuff like that, after all the photography. But if you want to explore more, I would recommend you can stay there for 2 nights. That way, if one day is not very bright and sunny, you don't get good pictures, or you want to go explore the areas around the lake more, minimum 1 night, but you can spend up to two nights over there.
Okay. And how much of a factor is the weather, Prasad? I know it's kind of a desert, so it might not rain as much, but otherwise, is it just dependent on when the sun comes out and how long it stays for?
So surprisingly, it's a desert, but when I was there, one day it rained, and it rained like heavily. So that's why I'm saying, if one day is washed out, if you have planned for 2 nights in there, then it would be good, because it's not a destination you will go again and again, probably. For a lot of people, it will be once in a lifetime kind of a destination. And that is a good thing actually, because otherwise if it becomes Shimla or Nainital, then everybody will be going there.
So where next to Prasad? I'll just ask what the next pit stop is, where you moved from Chandratal Lake. Yeah.
So Chandratal is basically, when you're coming back, is your last stop. But when you're going back, I highly recommend you stop at Kunjum Pass. It's one of the most photogenic Himalayan passes, I would say. The reason I say that is there's a small gompa and temple at the pass which has beautiful fluttering Tibetan colorful flags. So you get absolutely beautiful pictures, and there are very high peaks, snow-clad peaks all around you. So if it's a beautiful, bright, sunny day, you'll get absolutely amazing pictures. So you can spend an hour or so over there.
Is this much of a deviation?
No, this is, you have to pass through the Kunjum Pass to go back to anywhere from Chandratal.
And tell us a little bit more about these beautiful prayer flags. Anytime you do mention a Gompa, there's this picture of the prayer flags comes up. What's the significance of these prayer flags, and what's the origin of them?
So these are of Tibetan Buddhism origin, and if you look at them closely, they have prayers written on them in the Tibetan script. So you'll see pictures of Buddha, you'll see pictures of various birds, animals and motifs that you find in Buddhism. Like you'll see a horse, you'll see an elephant, you'll see lotus flowers and things like that. And then some prayers are written on them. And the whole idea is when the wind is blowing, the wind touches these prayer flags, the wind carries the prayers and then it blesses the people and it wards off any kind of evil spirits or evil winds away from you. So each flag will have different colors: white, blue, green, red. These are some of the common colors. Then there's a golden colored flags, and each one of them has a different significance and a different prayer mentioned on them. And every time some of the locals are going, they offer these prayer flags and they will tie these prayer flags on the Gompa. So that's the whole idea. Basically, they are blessing anybody who is passing through that area and to keep the travelers safe. Because these are some of the very harsh terrain, and roads have been built only last, say, 30, 40 years. Before that, it was all on foot or on a horseback kind of a thing. And in the winters, you will get 10 feet, 15 feet of snow. You cannot move anywhere except for within your village. So traveling was not easy. So you needed blessings to kind of reach back your destination or home safely.
Absolutely. And they do create beautiful fluttering noise as well, right? When the wind blows. Yeah.
So that sound is like when you just listen, and it is depending upon how fast the wind is blowing, the sound keeps on changing.
Excellent. So on that note, after passing through Kunjum Pass, is this on your way back to Kaza again, or did you head out to Manali?
Manali. This is on the way, like we did it on the way back to Manali. Some people like to first do Chandratal and then go to Kaza and all. Totally depends on you. The reason we prefer to do Chandratal in the end is because this is a camping site, very basic. So after that, next day you go to Manali, and then you can stay in a proper hotel and freshen up.
Sleep as well, right?
Yes.
Awesome. It's been an awesome journey so far, and I'm sure that you had a bunch of stories. If there's one story that you'd like to share with our listeners, Prasad, what would that be of your whole journey?
So, like I said, like there are a lot of monasteries over there, and from Key Monastery, there was this young Lama ji, and we became good friends. So he volunteered to trek with us to Dhankar Monastery and then later to Dhankar Lake. So we liked the idea because we are very interested in talking to him and understanding his wisdom and stories about the local life and all. So he gave us a lot of inputs about how he became a Lama and how he's studying. He's actually a very intelligent person. They go through not just the Buddhism, but through proper education also. And then they are awarded a degree from one of the Buddhist universities. The best story about him was like when I was climbing the monastery, not the monastery, sorry, towards the Dhankar Lake. I was a little tired because it's a little bit of climb, and I was resting at places. So this guy just comes to me and said, Prasad, it seems you are tired. I said, yes, I'm a little tired, so I'll climb a little slowly. Then he used to carry me on his back to the Like I said, no, and I'm not a light person. But he said, it's not an issue. I can carry you. I said, I'm sure you can carry me, and that's very nice of you. But I would like to complete my trek on my own. But he never left me alone. Like throughout the journey, he was just like either walking side by side with me or just a few steps ahead or behind me, just to make sure that I'm all right. So he was not supposed to do that, but I was like really feeling very thankful to him that he was there, so that if due to any reason I'm not able to complete the trek or something, then he can immediately take care of me. So that's very nice of those local people and the Lamanjis.
Awesome. It's surprising that he even offered to carry you all the way.
Yes.
You did mention that these are high altitudes with a lot of high-speed winds as well. So that's really kind of him to offer that. Nice gesture.
Yeah. And I'm sure he was strong enough to carry me, but like I didn't want to do that because.
Cool. And any final piece of advice for our aspiring travelers who want to visit Spiti?
Coming back to your question, I think the idea should be that you respect the local culture and you leave the place as pristine as you find it. And please be prepared to go there. It is not a tourist place. It is a place you go to savor and understand the local culture, local people, respect their traditions, respect their religion. The other thing is prepare for some of these very small things. Otherwise, your trip will become painful. Simple things like carrying sunscreen, simple things like drinking enough water so that you are hydrated, making sure that you're not standing in sun for too long, or if you're there, you cover yourself with a hat and things like that. Because these are not the terrains which are forgiving. These are really harsh terrains and the locals are used to it. So you may think, okay, this guy is not wearing any sunscreen, but he has been living it there all his life. You are coming from Delhi, Bangalore, Bombay, and you're not used to that. So just don't try to kind of mess with the nature. Follow the instructions which your guide gives to you, whether they are about drinking water or whether taking it slowly or whether covering yourself with a hat or a sunscreen, whatever as the case may be.
Prasad, thank you so much for taking us to this journey to this pretty much unexplored and pristine part of India and sharing all your memories from there and also letting our listeners know how to get about there and enjoy their stay while they're there. So thank you so much. We are really grateful to you for sharing your experiences. I'm sure a lot of our listeners are really looking forward to exploring more and also following your blog and your stories, your travel stories from the future. How can one follow you?
So on all social media, I am Desi Traveler with a single L in Traveler. Mm-hmm. So people can just follow me over there, subscribe to the blog, whatever they feel comfortable with. And I try to share one story a week at least.
Excellent. And just for the note of our listeners, all these links and social media handles will be shared in the show notes section of this page. So it's easier to follow that way. Prasad, finally, before we let you go, if you had to take away one memorable moment, if you just had to shut your eyes and think about one moment that comes up to you from this journey or from this trip, what would that be?
I would say standing in the middle of nowhere in this small Lanza village and looking at a billion stars above you. That's something I will never forget. That tells you how insignificant our space or place is in this universe. We humans tend to think we are the masters of the universe. We are not. We are just a speck in the great creation created by Almighty, and we need to respect that and remember that. I think that's my takeaway. That's what you learn when you travel, that this universe is too big and we need to respect that.
Absolutely. On that wonderful note, thank you so much, Prasad, for taking time out and sharing your experiences with our listeners. We're looking forward to more of these travel stories from you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me. Really enjoyed talking to you.
That was yet another great episode of the Musafir Stories. If you guys like the show, please subscribe to us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Pocket Radio, or any other podcasting app that's available on iOS or Android. You could also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We go by the handle The Musafir Stories. Or, if it suits you, you could email us at themusafirstories@gmail.com and visit our website www.themusafirstories.com for more information. All of these links will be made available in the show notes section of the podcast. So here's to more traveling, sharing, and inspiring. Stay tuned for our next episode. Until then, happy travels and goodbye.